Meet Bington, a grizzly who's so massive he could crush trees, but inside, he still thinks he's a cub. Sounds unbelievable, right? Well, meet Bington, the giant grizzly who never grew up. His story is about to turn everything you think you know about bears on its head. Let's go. Is Bington just a quirky bear? Or is there something deeper at play here? Keep watching to find out. Picture this, a bear, nearly 1,000 pounds, lumbering through the forest, but instead of hunting or defending his territory, he's chasing butterflies. Sounds insane, right? Well, that's exactly what Bington did. He was no ordinary grizzly bear. As massive as he was, he acted like a playful cub, running after things that didn't matter to other animals. Imagine a bear with the power to take down a deer, yet he would spend his time sniffing flowers and rolling in the grass like a pup. People who encountered him couldn't help but wonder, why isn't he acting like a grown bear? Bington was famous in the local wildlife community, not because he was the strongest or the fiercest, but because he was the most childlike. He wasn't like the other bears who hunted for food, fought for territory, or sought mates. No, Bington preferred to play, explore, and sometimes act like he was still a cub. His behavior baffled everyone, from the rangers to the locals who saw him regularly. They all asked the same question: why did this massive bear still think he was a cub? But here's the thing. What if his refusal to grow up wasn't as innocent as it seemed? What if Bington's behavior wasn't just some quirky trait, but the result of something far deeper? Do you think Bington could ever become the bear he's supposed to be? Drop your thoughts below. Bington's early life is a mystery. Born into the wild, he had the makings of a regular cub. But while other cubs were learning to fish, hunt, and fend for themselves, Bington spent his time chasing after bugs and rolling in the leaves. He wasn't like his siblings, who quickly became fierce hunters, accustomed to the harsh realities of life in the forest. Rangers who first encountered Bington didn't quite know what to make of him. He's just different, they'd say, unable to explain why Bington never exhibited typical grizzly behaviors. Most cubs grow into strong, independent bears, but Bington remained gentle, playful, and entirely unprepared for the challenges that awaited him in the wild. For years, wildlife experts speculated that Bington was simply a slow learner. But as he grew older and bigger, his childlike tendencies didn't fade. In fact, they became more pronounced. He seemed unaware of the dangers of the wild. When other bears were establishing territories, Bington was playing with rocks or trying to interact with smaller animals. The truth was, no one knew what had caused Bington to remain so childlike. Some experts wondered if a trauma in his early years had stunted his development. Others theorized it was a behavioral anomaly, an example of a bear that had never fully matured. But as Bington grew, so did the concern. Could a bear like him survive in the wild? Or would his refusal to grow up eventually catch up with him? And just as the mystery of his behavior deepened, something would happen that would change everything. What would you do if you found a grown bear who acted like a cub? Hit that like button if you want to learn more. But here's where the story takes a twist. Bington's playful nature started to put him in danger. While other bears were busy hunting, Bington was still content to play. He didn't fight for food or compete for territory. He didn't understand the harsh realities of the wild, the danger of predators, the necessity to hunt, or the importance of establishing dominance. One fateful morning, everything changed. As Bington wandered along the Silver Creek Trail, a truck came barreling down the road. The driver didn't see him in time, and before Bington could react, the truck hit him with incredible force. Bington's massive body was sent flying across the road, and when he landed, he was badly injured. For the first time in his life, Bington wasn't just playing in the forest, he was fighting for survival. The truck sped away without stopping, leaving Bington alone and broken on the cold asphalt. He was confused, hurt, and terrified. The playful bear had now become a vulnerable creature, out of his depth in a world he had never fully understood. The emotional shock was just as bad as the physical pain. Was this the end of the cub who refused to grow up? Could Bington survive the harsh reality of the world he had been avoiding for so long? Do you think Bington can survive? Leave a comment with your prediction. Bington was severely injured. His large body lay motionless on the road, his once powerful frame now broken and battered. The immediate pain was overwhelming, but it wasn't just the physical wounds that left a mark. It was the trauma. For the first time, Bington was aware of his fragility. The forest was no longer a safe place for him. His playful innocence couldn't protect him from the reality of the world. That it wasn't long before locals discovered Bington. They rushed to his aid, calling in wildlife experts and veterinarians to help him. They patched up his wounds, but the deeper scars, the emotional ones, were not so easy to heal. For weeks, Bington was confused and scared. He avoided the places he once loved. The sound of a truck's engine sent him running in fear, his heart racing as he relived the traumatic moment of the accident. But the kindness of the people around him made a difference. Bington was taken in by Sam and Margaret, an elderly couple known for their love of wildlife. They didn't just offer food and medical care. They offered something Bington had never truly experienced: trust and compassion. Still, something wasn't right. Bington wasn't just recovering physically. His fear of the world, of the sounds and sights that once didn't faze him, remained. He was a bear caught between two worlds, one where he was still a playful cub, and one where the dangers of life demanded something more. Could love and patience heal a bear who had never grown up? Would Bington ever learn to trust again? Have you ever seen an animal struggle like this? Hit the like button if you think Bington deserves another chance. Bington's healing process wasn't just physical. It was emotional, psychological, and, most importantly, a journey of rediscovery. The physical wounds were healing, but the mental scars ran deeper. Every time a car passed by, Bington would freeze in fear. His once playful demeanor was replaced by wariness, even panic. He would retreat to the corners of his recovery room, trembling whenever someone walked by. Sam and Margaret were patient. They understood that Bington needed time, space, and love. But despite their best efforts, something inside Bington still resisted. He didn't know how to live with fear. He had never experienced it before. His world was once safe, a place where he could play without worrying about the dangers of the wild. Then, one day, a breakthrough. A truck drove by, and instead of running, Bington stood still, watching it pass. His body was tense, but there was no panic. It was the first sign that Bington might be learning to cope with his fears, but healing wasn't going to be easy. It would take time, and Bington wasn't done facing his demons just yet. Bington was making progress, but was he ready to face his biggest challenge yet? The real test was just around the corner. Could love and patience really heal a bear like Bington? Comment below if you think it's possible. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. One evening, after a long day of recovery, Bington found himself standing in the middle of the forest, his gaze locked on the distant trees. A truck's engine rumbled in the distance. For the first time, Bington didn't flee. He didn't cower or run to the shelter of the forest. Instead, he stood there, listening. Then, something incredible happened. Bington took a few cautious steps forward. He wasn't the playful cub he used to be, but he was no longer the fearful bear he had been after the accident. He was, for the first time, truly facing his fears. But would he continue to face them? Would he finally accept his place in the wild? Or had he been too scarred by his past? The wild was calling to him again. But this time, Bington wasn't sure if he was ready to answer. How do you think Bington reacted? Let's see who's right. Comment your guess now. The months passed, and Bington grew more confident. He began to venture out of his recovery room, cautiously at first, but with more intention. The playful cub still existed within him, but he had found a new purpose: to embrace his life, no matter how it unfolded. Bington now understood that he wasn't just a bear who had to stay in the wild or with humans. He could choose. And as the days passed, he made the decision to stay with Sam and Margaret. But something unexpected happened. A week after his final recovery, Bington returned to the forest. He wandered along the familiar trail, but this time, he was different. He wasn't afraid. Bington had made peace with the wild, but did that mean he was ready to leave the humans who had become his family? Do you think Bington should stay with his human family or return to the wild? Drop a comment with your answer. Bington had finally found peace. He had learned that growing up wasn't about becoming something he wasn't. It was about accepting who he was, where he belonged, and the love that surrounded him. While he might have never fully embraced the wild as other bears did, Bington had found something more precious: a sense of belonging. Bington's journey teaches us that sometimes The greatest strength lies in embracing who we are, even when the world expects us to change. What do you think about Bington's journey? Was it the right choice for him to stay? Let us know below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing animal stories.